Hey folks, Malforian here, and welcome to Dev Diary 145 Legends and Legitimacy for Crusader Kings 3. As always, we're going to take a look through the Dev Diary today. It is going to be a full feature breakdown of Legends, Legitimacy, and then there is also a big section about art. I'm going to be honest, we're not going to cover that too much in this video. As amazing as the art is, this Dev Diary is quite sizable already. As always though, I will leave a link to it in the description down below. But we're just going to get straight into Legends. As they say here, in the last Dev Diary, they covered why they originally thought of bringing Legends into the game. Obviously covers the time period quite well. There was either Legends grown in this time period, or there was previous Legends that were used by people in this time frame to kind of make themselves look better and things like that. So obviously a pretty cool addition to the game. And how are we going to do this? There's going to be legends of different types and quality, very much like artifacts work. But because no legend can really ever be mundane, they will start as famed, then illustrious, and then finally mythical if you basically rank them up during your gameplay. Each of them give out a progressively better reward with each tier, and you can increase the quality of the legend by spreading it far enough, including having it extend outside of your realm, which we did see in the initial Dev Diary when this DLC was announced, how it basically spreads on the map kind of like a Plague does, which is why it fits so well, Legends and Plagues being in the same DLC, because they kind of on the map operate very similar in a funny way. It's kind of cool how that works. And as we can see in our first screenshot here, this is a famed Legitimizing legend. This has a 50% chance to gain access to a legendary palace option to clear grounds for a legendary building decision. You can get claims on every de jure title inside the Kingdom of Bohemia, so this one must be kind of focused around Bohemia itself. Now, from the wording of that, I presume this is where you're not the King of Bohemia, because then you would already have de jure claims on the Kingdom of Bohemia. I'm not too sure, but anyway, that's what it gives. Gains access to the Commission Legend Artifact decision, allowing you to commission a Chronicle to commemorate your legend, which they did cover as well in a previous Dev Diary. We're going to get a cool book where it kind of tells the story of your character. You gain 200 Legitimacy. They're going to cover Legitimacy later in the Dev Diary, so stick around for that. And you increase your Legitimacy level to True, which is 4 out of 5. And again, they're going to cover that later on. This costs 240 gold and 75 prestige, and it costs you almost 3 gold a month to maintain, so not super expensive to create. You could probably get this relatively quickly, and then the money to maintain is quite a bit, so I guess you're kind of deciding if you want to invest into these bonuses or not. It's going to be a bit of a decision, I guess. If you've got a lot of money, I'd imagine you're always going to do these. And then this one is a mythical version of it, so 2 tiers above famed. You gain access to Consolidate the Kingdom decision, allowing you to immediately de jure drift a kingdom into your realm. Wow, that seems pretty good. Immediately de jure drift a kingdom into your realm. So I guess this is if you're an emperor, say the HRE. I guess if you take over France, you can then immediately de jure drift it into the HRE Empire title, which is pretty crazy because then the HRE will have de jure claims on the Kingdom of France for the rest of the game, unless it de jure drifts out of it again, I suppose. Gain access to the Legendary Palace option, so it's not a chance, you definitely get that on this one. You get a press claim on the HRE. Gain access to the Commission Legend Artifact decision, again allowing you to chronicle your legend. Gain 600 Legitimacy, and you become Ordained, which is 5 out of 5 on Legitimacy level. Costs the same amount to create, though, by the looks of it. Oh, it does, which is a little bit weird. I would have thought they'd be more expensive. It does say later on they do scale, obviously, as the game continues. Kind of thought the Mythical would be more expensive. I guess you just have different requirements, so that's probably the differentiator between the two. And then as for the types, Legends can be Heroic, Holy, or Legitimizing. Obviously, those ones are Legitimizing. Heroic Legends give additional prestige modifiers and other thematic rewards that reflect your heroism, like the decision to launch a legendary adventure or demand local submission. And here we have the legendary adventure decision itself. It would appear my legend around here has come to an end, but I still feel the yearning for more great deeds before I part from this world. There must be more out there. I intend to bring my legend to distant and mythical lands. Okay. Give one-time access to the legendary adventure Casus Belli, allowing you to abandon your current realm and seek your fortune in a foreign kingdom. You will gain adventuring spirit for 5 years. Interesting. So is this a version of like Varangian Adventure? Although it does sound like they're talking about themselves. This almost feels like something that would be part of the kind of landless character system where you can give up being a king and just go like Crusade or something on your own rather than taking your realm with you. But it does look like from the wording that is a game-wide version of the Varangian Adventure, which is obviously for Norse characters. So it will be interesting to see how that actually works in-game, because I guess you can basically just move your realm to another kingdom if you win the war. It seems like that's how it would work. We'll obviously find out once the DLC is released. Holy legends are focused around piety and are greatly inspired by medieval, I'm not sure how to pronounce that word, so I'm just going to say stories, I guess. Specifically the golden legend, allowing the protagonist to even gain the saint at the highest levels if the appropriate dynasty perk has been unlocked. And with this, we actually get our first screenshot of the 2 new legacies. So there's going to be Heroic Bloodline, and there's going to be Legitimacy. Makes sense, kind of covers the 2 features already, and we don't get a full breakdown, but Golden Legend, which is the 3rd unlock, gain the Saint trait upon completing a mythical holy legend. Legend creation discount is 15%, so the cost of making a legend is cheaper, and if you do a mythical holy legend, you become a saint, which is pretty cool. I guess that's just for the character who actually does it, but it is a dynasty perk, so I guess anyone in your dynasty who does a mythical holy legend will become a saint, which is pretty cool. You could have some crazy playthroughs where you just try and make like a saintly dynasty, and I'm sure there's going to be some achievements based around that once we find out what they are. Lastly, legitimizing legends will give you double the amount of legitimacy and allow you to get new powerful claims to expand your realm. So I guess that does mean if you were a duke in Bohemia, you could get one of these and it would give you a claim on the kingdom of Bohemia because it would show that you're the legitimate ruler of the kingdom and you should be more than a duke. I guess that's how that's going to work. You can, of course, choose the legend protagonist, the author of these heroic deeds. Among the possible options are your relatives, even if dead, and choosing someone other than yourself will also grant you extra legitimacy so you can dedicate your legend to your dragon hunting grandpa. I actually like that system. That's pretty cool, especially as you get a bonus for doing it, because otherwise you would always just make the legend about yourself. But I guess because you're saying, no, my grandfather who fought a dragon is so amazing, people in your realm would be like, wow, you're an amazing ruler, because you're not even talking about yourself. You're giving praise for previous rulers or just someone from your dynasty, which is pretty cool. I like that that's in there. But then, of course, how do you start a legend? Well, every legend is born from a legend seed. Some characters start with the historical seeds at the start of the game, like the heirs of Charlemagne or the Hunnic heritage available for Nordic cultures that claim to be descended from Attila himself. So we see here heirs of Charlemagne, characters who have this at the beginning. You basically just need to earn the ability to create it. So in this example, 340 gold, 75 prestige. If you have this available to your character, you can activate it and you're having a good time. Some characters, if you just want to get straight into the system, you can go in and just build up that golden prestige and then get these bonuses straight away. However, that is not the only way to get legend seeds, as winning important wars, hunting a legendary animal, and taking major decisions are some of the more common ways of getting one. Pretty obvious. It'd be crazy if that was the only way to get them, the set ones at the beginning of the game. But it does look like there are quite a few different ways to get this. So if you like doing wars, you're going to be able to do it. But if you like just having a roleplay time, doing events and things like that, you're going to be able to get it through hunting. I imagine other things as well. I imagine other ways, like doing very pious pilgrimages or something like that, might give you one. But outside of that, obviously, there's always a sneaky way of getting things. You can hire a court chronicler, and if you have enough gold, they can manage to find an ancient document appearing to mention your long-lost dynasty. I do like that, basically fabricating a legend for yourself, rather than having to do a legendary war, fighting a beast, taking a major decision, or I imagine there's a bunch of other ways. Like I said, I would think doing a big crusade or something like that potentially will get you one as well. But yeah, you can also just make one up and just say, yeah, it totally happened. Of course it did. And here is one of the decisions that they talked about that have been slightly reworked in game at the moment. I'm sure there's some new ones, I would imagine, but this is obviously Mend the Great Schism. This is fixing the Christian church, but added to the effects and basically the rewards from this is a Holy Legend seed. So what that would do is give you one of these options here, which would say, this is the fixing the Great Schism seed. It would tell you what the modifiers are that you get it, and then you can build up the resources to activate it through the creation cost, and then obviously choose if you want to maintain it. I imagine if you're paying for the creation, you're probably going to maintain it, but I guess there's bonuses anyway, even if you don't maintain it, and that's going to be a way to get hold of some of these. I do like how you can basically unlock all these seeds, so these basically will appear in the UI, and you get to choose, like, oh, I've got 5 of these, I want to choose that one, and that's the one I'm going to actually create, and that gives you a little bit of choice. If you do a lot of stuff in the game, if you're not just focused in one area, you're going to get a bunch of options, depending on how good you play, obviously, to then make these legends and promote them and get all the bonuses from them. I do like how they've gone back to these older events and added these legendary features to them as well. It makes sense as well. If you did unify the Christian church, you probably would be seen as a bit of a legend. But supporting a legend is not only beneficial to its owner, as becoming a promoter, a much cheaper alternative, will also grant you special bonuses as well as help the legend spread on your lands. The higher the quality of the legend, the bigger the rewards for you too. So yep, you don't even have to be the legend or be part of the legend dynasty. It looks like basically anyone can go, yeah, I want to make this guy sound cool in my realm. Come spread that legend into my realm. And then this person, legendary promoter, would get 1 to 4 stewardship and then a little bit of renown bonus as well. So a little bit of a bonus there, especially if you're, I guess, an up-and-coming character and there's a couple of these bonuses that you want to pick up, but you can't get a legend yourself. You can promote somebody else's. Do you want to do that? I guess it's kind of a trade-off. I do wonder then what happens when you make a legend. Does it like override it in your realm immediately, or do you have to like push back the one that you've spread into your lands, or potentially that they've spread into your lands? If they've paid enough money to promote it themselves, it will naturally spread out from their zone anyway. So it will be cool to see exactly how that works, how you can override one that's already in your realm with your version of one or something like that. While you spread your legend, you will get flavor events for both people reacting to your legend in different manners, along with your chronicler and courtiers fervently asking you to recount the story just once more, my liege, making it possible to introduce minor alterations to the text. Oh, I like that as well. That's cool. Actually, that it's part of an event. You don't just go in and try to change something. They'll actually come to you and say, oh, retell me that part of the story, and then you can kind of change it a little bit. Oh, yeah, I just remember this additional thing that happened. Make sure to write that down, and you can actually change it through an event. I do like where they use events to change things, and everything's not just a button press or something like that. Like, I know it is just a button press anyway, but it's actually an event in the game and not just a UI thing you press. It's a little bit different, it's more immersive. And then there is also a new court position task. You can make musicians and poets sing your legend to make it easier to spread inside your realm and get them to try and convince supporters abroad. So yeah, court musician, very expensive, 4 gold. This princess here is an average court musician, court grandeur bonus +2, monthly court grandeur change 10%, increases opinion gains whilst hosting a feast. So again, another new addition to the system where it does different things. Like this gives you court grandeur changes like most of these court positions do, but it also affects feasts. It gives opinion modifier improvements in feasts, which is great. Again, older content. I guess it's not really that old. It got a revamp in tours and tournaments, but then even this DLC and features looping back round to improve feasts again with some additional kind of features and things like that, which is cool. And then as we saw on announcement, these new positions almost work like minor council positions. They have 3 different options to choose, very much like council positions do. And then the one they've got highlighted here is the Extol Domestic Legends task, and this gives a 20% chance to spread the legend within your realm. The other 2 options, I imagine one is Extol outside of your realm. I imagine this one on the right-hand side. And the left-hand one, I wonder if that's a cheaper one, like just maintain it or something, because the 357 gold that is making up the bulk of this cost here is from this middle decision. Extol it externally will be even more expensive, but I would imagine this first one will be a cheaper alternative so that the court musician, if you're not really wanting to go too crazy in spreading your legend, is a little bit cheaper. Although maybe not. It is a feature that's going to give you a lot of benefits, so it should cost you a lot of money, I guess, at the same time. And then previously they did talk about being able to turn your legend into an artifact. I think the example they gave was like a chronicle book. You can celebrate a feast in its honor, or you can simply enjoy the control boost from having it spread over people that now believe you a hero. Legends were a core part of the medieval world, a powerful tool to root your power in something greater than you. And that leads straight onto legitimacy, which is going to be the next thing they're going to talk about. I do love the art here. It is amazing art with him looking at like the dynasty tree of his house, which is really cool. This is making the book of that house. So this is where he's turning the legend into a physical item, a physical retelling of his dynasty. That's a really cool feature to be able to do as well. I think it would be cool if you could make a book about somebody else's legacy. I'm not sure if that is what they mean. From the wording here, it sounds like you can only do that to your legacies. But I think it would be cool if you could, say, see a descendant of Charlemagne and spend money making a chronicle book of it and then gift it to them. And maybe you could trade that in for some hooks, maybe even some lands. Look, I think I'm a count at the moment. I should be the Duke of Anjou or somewhere. Why don't you give me that and look at this amazing book? And they might go, yeah, go on then. That seems like a good trade. You're kind of showing how cool my dynasty is. I'll give you a little reward. Anyway, that is the end of the Legends section. I love what I see so far. Let me know what you think in the comments. It would have been cool to see more of the legendary options, like the battle one. Could I make a rampaging Viking legend? Could I get some crazy bonuses for raiding and, you know, just expanding my rampage around the world, pillaging buildings and things? I'm sure there is one of those. It'd be crazy if there isn't, but it would have been cool to see a few more examples, I think. And then outside of that, the only other thing that would be cool, I saw somebody talking about this today, it would be cool if there were negative legends. Maybe you had a lot of plagues. Maybe you were the emperor of the HRE and it got dissolved during your rulership or something, and they gave you negative modifiers. Maybe you could activate a bad version. Maybe they automatically activated, and then if you could kind of counteract them well enough through some kind of, I don't know, like mini quest or something, you would then get a temporary boost in something else. That is obviously quite a bit of extra content for this. There's already a lot going in this DLC, but I think that could be really cool, having negative legends due to your like inability to do something, and then maybe you die, you're seen as a terrible ruler, and then your son like inherits the legend of incompetence of your father, but then he could like counteract it in some way, like rebuild the realm. Maybe if you lost a bunch of land through wars, he could regain those lands. But then that could give a boon for like 50 years for like demolishing a terrible legend of your dynasty and reforging your dynasty anew and have these other bonuses instead. Like I say, a bit of a tangent. I think that would be awesome though, having those negatives and trying to turn them around into positives. It would give some new gameplay ideas of not like intentionally being bad, but you could pick a ruler that maybe is down on his luck, not having a good time, has this negative legend, and then trying your best to like turn it around and making him like a paragon of awesomeness. Definitely what it would be called. And then seeing how that plays out in the game. But anyway, this dev diary is long enough. That's enough for me waffling about legends. Let's get on to legitimacy instead. For legitimacy, our aim was to put together a measurement of different systems that already exist in the game, but were not directly connected to each other. Short range penalties, popular opinion, vassalization, marriage acceptance. I mean, you could argue that lifestyles and legacy trees already cover this, but sure, let's go with it. The game was already trying to reflect how legitimate your ruler was, but trying to do so with prestige and renown were not consistent ways. Prestige is a reflection of the social influence of a character, not the indication of them being the right person for the throne. You could be a highly prestigious king of the Capetian dynasty, but should you be the emperor of the Byzantines? Probably not. Legitimacy and its effects scale with title tier. It's not the same being a level 5 emperor where everybody expects you to be the right person for the job than a level 5 duke where everyone is impressed with your overachieving. So cool, this actually scales with your ranks. I did not see that previously. So again, I really like how they've put some additional steps into the system. You can be a famous count, but does that make you a good king? Probably not. It kind of resets at that point and you have to build yourself back up. You can't just go from being a very competent count and then when you become a king, everyone just sees you at the same level. You've got to kind of work your way up to it again, which is cool. Keeps the system being worthwhile as well during your campaigns. And we saw this previously in one of the other dev diaries. Illegitimate ruler of count rank, and this is ordained ruler of a count rank. And we won't go into this too much because they did cover this in the first dev diary on the DLC, but as you can see, basically they're a flip of each other. If you're not very good, you get short range duration increases, reduced alliance acceptance. It does affect a lot of things that you would think about, like realm building and things like that, because they don't see you as a legitimate ruler. If you are a very legitimate ruler, it's the opposite. You get more renown. You actually get minus 100% short range durations, popular opinion plus 30, and then the different marriage and alliance acceptance rates as well, which is cool. Kind of seeing how that flips over between having no level to being level 5. And then the same for emperors. Level 0 illegitimate ruler of an empire is the same, but the numbers are bigger, I believe. Yes, they are. Minus 0.3 renown, short range duration plus 100%, popular opinion minus 30. So if you become an emperor and you're illegitimate, it's going to be very hard to keep your realm together, or at least keep your emperor position. And then massively reduced vassalization acceptance, marriage acceptance, and vassalization acceptance. Massively increased claimant factions, massively increased claim casus belli costs. I can't believe how the game's going to play out with this. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how stable or unstable this makes certain realms. Because I imagine if you have somebody win a claimant war and they're not a very prestige-heavy character, we've all seen this where like a random person wins a claim on the Byzantine throne. I imagine that would make them a illegitimate ruler because they're not supposed to be the Emperor of the Byzantines, for example. This looks like they'll very quickly just get removed from that position, which is cool to see, But will this create like a spiral of illegitimacy where it's just constant replacements are illegitimate? They make more factions, so more factions win, and then that faction isn't legitimate, so then that one gets replaced. It will be pretty crazy if that happens, but we'll see obviously during our playthroughs once this is out. And then Ordained Emperor is short range duration minus 25%. Wait, isn't that worse than the count one? Yeah, short range duration minus 100%. I guess because you're an emperor, even though you are like ordained ruler, you are still an emperor. So I guess minus 100 would mean there was no disruption to your realm when you took over, where even if you were seen as the most legitimate emperor, I suppose there would be a little bit of a, hey, you're the new guy kind of modifier. Popular opinion plus 10, and then obviously the things that were reduced in the last one are now increased, but not by as much. These are massively reduced or massively increased negative modifiers, whereas if you're level 5, it just slightly reduces them, slightly increases them. I would imagine this is because if you were a level 5 emperor and it gave you crazy bonuses, it would just make the game so easy. Yes, I know there's going to be comments saying the game is super easy anyway, but stick with it. If these were like hugely accepted vassalization rates, marriage and alliance rates, for example, you'd just be able to have everyone under your control, and yeah, that wouldn't be that fun. So I can see why the Emperor 5 out of 5 bonuses don't seem as crazy good as they should be, because otherwise the game would just get crazy easy at that point. So they are the examples for Count and Emperor. It's also easier to go up and down levels the lower you are in the tier system. Easier to convince somebody that you're a Count versus an Emperor. You know, if you're just going around saying, hey, I'm the Count of this place, people around there are probably going to be like, yeah, sure, that makes sense. Whereas if you're an Emperor, obviously a little bit harder to convince people that you should be the Emperor of all this area. You've got to convince kings and dukes that you should be their boss, so it is cool, again, that that kind of scales with the tiers. And then on top of that, as we see with most systems, Legacy will scale in different game eras. The levels are smaller in tribal and early medieval eras, so it's easier to go up the ranks earlier in the game, which again ties into like the historical manner of it. I would imagine in these earlier eras of this time frame, a bit easier to convince someone you should be a king. By the time we get into like the 1400s, a little bit less easy to convince somebody like, I've taken the throne of Spain, I should be the Spanish king. They're probably going to think, well, I don't know, the last 400 years makes me think you shouldn't be. And then legitimacy is calculated through a series of factors mainly attached to who you are in relation to your title, the level of splendor of your dynasty, how long you've been on the throne, who your parents were, are you a child of a king or just some random lowborns, your traits and your heritage, for example. If you lose a faction demand and some random lowborn becomes king, they're going to have a bad time, I think. They're not going to be seen as very legitimate. They've basically stolen your throne off you. Maybe legitimately. Maybe they should have stolen it off you, but they will still be seen as not being legitimate in having that title. And then again, it's cool to see they've linked this into other features. So your level of your dynasty, how long you've been king or queen, who your parents are. So a lot of different things that you're going to have to keep in mind when you're going to take over as a king or queen. Are you seen as a powerful character basically in the game? When you die, a part of your legitimacy is passed down to your heir, but they will get a calculation based on who they actually are. It's not the same to have your firstborn inherit rather than your third cousin. You do pass some of it on to kind of help this kind of smooth transition. But again, if you don't pick your first son, if you've got like elective succession and you pick some random other person, they're not going to be having as good a time legitimizing who they are, because historically, generally the first son took over everything. If you skip over him and give it to somebody else, people are going to think, wait, shouldn't that other guy be the king? And then also, as you can see in the screenshot, some traits are going to give you these bonuses as well. This one, for example, will give you initial legitimacy bonuses, can be inherited. So some nice bonuses, again, from features and traits that are already in the game, giving you some additional bonuses. Legitimacy can be gained through various means that will reassure the public opinion that you have the right to be on the throne. Legends, for example, are one way. Holding activities, holding court, and doing what's expected of a ruler will also increase it, as well as winning wars. But this will also be relative, as it's not the same to win a war against a duke as an emperor than it is the duke to beat up an emperor. So obviously you get more. If you beat somebody above your rank, people in your realm are going to be like, wow, this duke just beat an emperor? What a legend. He should be our king. Whereas if you're a legend and you lose a war to a duke, I imagine your legitimacy is going to take a pretty big hit from doing so. Legitimacy can also be lost. Losing battles, as we just thought, especially to factions and especially to claimant factions, will make you look pretty bad, and even managing to have a peasant rebellion appear will signify that you're not taking good care of your subjects. Oh no, that means I'm actually going to have to convert counties to cultures or religions, isn't it? because depending on how bad that legitimacy modifier is, sometimes we've all had those campaigns where you're just getting these rebellions constantly spawn, but they're so weak you don't really care about it. This actually gives you a reason to not have these rebellions spawn, which is cool because once you get past the early game, yeah, they spawn, but they're always just boring levy troops and you can just beat them without even thinking about it. Whereas now, if these penalties are high enough, you're going to be thinking, well, I should actually solve the issue that's causing this problem rather than just being like, well, I can just beat the rebellion, so I don't care about converting these counties because, yeah, they're going to raise up, but I'm just going to squish them and who cares? Whereas now, if this legitimacy penalty is high enough, you're going to want to actually fix the issue and stop it from happening, which is cool. Again, working into these older systems to make them even more kind of front and center in the game, make you think about them. Outside of that, rulers were also blamed for plagues, so having them hit your capital will make you appear less legitimate in the eyes of your vassals. Disinheriting or forcing kids to take the vows will also expose a ruler that doesn't really take good care of their dynasty and will also make you lose legitimacy. So there we go, that's them taking aim at you folks who like disinheriting everyone, making them take the vows, choosing your perfect ruler, because this system is going to make you think twice about it. If the penalties are bad enough, you're not really going to be able to do this as well. Or maybe you will be able to, but you've got to suffer the consequences now of maybe getting more rebellions, maybe having worse marriage and vassalization chances. That gameplay option is available. You can kind of cheese the succession system still, but you're going to have these additional penalties. I like this. I always say I never do that. I always try and take the character who should be the next ruler. I don't really like forcefully disinheriting people or making them take the vows just to get around them being in the line of succession. It won't affect me that much, but it definitely will affect some of you, I'm sure. Rage on in the comments down below. I'm sure you won't, but I do like how they've kind of looked at one of the ways people kind of cheese the game in some ways. So here we go, disinheriting. You lose 300 legitimacy. Oh, it actually takes you down a full rank in legitimacy as well by the looks of it. And every courtly vassal dislikes you by 20, which isn't that bad, I imagine, if you've been the ruler for a while. But the other things, I think if you disinherit like one child, it's not going to be that bad, but yeah, if you're trying to be very picky and disinherit a lot of people, you're going to be having a bad time. That's really going to affect your legitimacy. Definitely something you're probably going to want to avoid doing. Your vassals, of course, have expectations of you. This is calculated based on your tier, era, and how long your family has ruled their lands, and then also their opinion and relationship to you. Not meeting your vassal expectations will make them discontent and more likely to join factions against you. Again, looping this into the faction system even more. And here we go. Rightful ruler, rank 3 of 5 for a kingdom rank. Short range duration, minus 10%. So yeah, the middle ranks don't really give you anything too crazy. It's really being at 0 and 1 and 4 and 5 are going to give you the really good bonuses. 1, 2, and 3 are generally either going to give you slightly bad modifiers or it looks like slightly good modifiers. Nothing too insane. 10% short range duration isn't really that much, to be honest. Kind of surprised it isn't a little bit higher, but I suppose this is because they are below the expected legitimacy of their vassals, so it makes sense, I guess, that you're not going to get crazy bonuses for being something less than you should be. As we've already seen in the tooltips, legitimacy levels affect all aspects of the game. Caster spell eyes, marriage and alliance acceptance, faction formation, and even the counties necessary to create a title. Now, I didn't see that, but it must be up here somewhere. I must have skimmed over it when we were doing it. Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, so for Emperor rank, reduce the de jure counties needed to form a title. So, yeah, you can make titles easier. And then if you're a very good count, it also reduces the de jure counties needed to create a title. So you can make a duke title or a kingdom title easier, which is cool for a count. It will help you kind of go up the ladder quicker. Obviously, you're going to have to kind of rebuild your legitimacy at the next rank, but it does help you do that. And then the same for an emperor. I guess you could kind of spread your realm a little bit easier because you can be making those kingdom titles, keeping them for yourself or giving them to somebody else, and then they will have de jure claims on the rest of the counties in that kingdom. So it's going to be a good way to kind of blob out if that's how you like map painting. I missed that the first time around, but I actually quite like that. That's pretty cool. So there we go, folks. That is the breakdown of how Legends and Legitimacy work. There is a little bit, as I said, about how the art has been done for this DLC. We're not going to go through this in the dev diary. There is a lot of information here, so you can take a look at that through the link in the description down below if you're interested. As always, the art in this game is amazing. And then there's paintings, how they're going to work. And then the last few bits in the dev diary are some things we had teased before. The first thing being map tables. As you can see on the screen now, this one here is the map if you have the new Legends of the Dead DLC. If you don't have it, it will look like this red version. We have already seen that when the Byzantine and Landless Character DLC comes out, The Byzantines are getting a special version of this that's all purple and has grapes and stuff on there, so they're getting a special one. It looks like they're going to focus these around different content in the future. It does say these are the only two at the moment. Now, one thing I would like, and I'm sure somebody is going to make a mod for this, it does actually say this is very moddable. It would be cool if you had like this basic layout, but then the items around it change depending on what you were. For example, if this guy was a herbalist, you get like a bunch of herbs on there maybe. If you're just doing a lot of wars, you would just get a bunch of weapons around your table. Maybe if you're a stewardship character, you just get like piles of gold and bars and things like that around the table. This isn't going to be something you're often going to be doing. I imagine most of us are obviously going to be playing zoomed in on the map like we do at the moment, but it is cool to kind of zoom out, have that immersive feel of this is my realm or something like that on the table and kind of seeing the world as a map. As we've always seen since the game was announced, it's like a map with the eastern portion ripped off for future DLC. And we will see that obviously in the far future, I would imagine, completing the map with its unripped right-hand side. It's not ripped on the left-hand side though, is it? So I guess we're not getting America at any point. That is the new map feature. I like that. I think it's really cool. Next, we're on to legendary buildings. They did show this off previously. I think they showed off this statue one, but obviously these are the different legendary palaces and other features that you can make, and then they do actually show up on the map, which is cool. We've got instruments. Obviously, we have these new court positions that are about musicians and things like that. So we're not going to read through this. All of these have been added to the game. So you can have a little bit of fun with different instruments on your character, which is nice. And then that is it for the Dev Diary this week. So quite a long one. I will be honest, you've been here quite a while. Hit that like button if you've made it this far. Next week, they're obviously going to be covering plagues, the Black Death, funerals, mod support, and more character art, which is awesome. So I imagine next week's Dev Diary is going to be even bigger because plagues, Black Death, funerals, that's going to be interesting to see. So we're going to have funerals in the game, but not coronations. I think with Legends coming in, it would have been cool to have coronations as well. Maybe we'll get them in a free patch later on or in one of the other DLCs. To be honest, it might come with the landless character one. That would make sense. You could be going from having nothing to being crowned a king. So if we do get coronations, I would imagine it will come in that DLC. Well, part of the free patch of that DLC anyway. But yeah, that's it for this week, guys. Quite a long one. As I said, hit that like button if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are new here. I cover Crusader Kings. We do campaigns, mod spotlights, all those cool things. Leave a comment down below. Do you like what you see? Is there anything you're particularly happy with or that you're looking forward to get your hands on in a couple of weeks now? It's not very far away. But we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you in the next one.